want to get 100 billion under management.
100 billion?
Of enterprise value, that's
And what time frame?
Probably 3 years plus, because some of the
3 years plus to take from 20 bill enterprise value to over 100.
Enterprise value of the project. I am worried about the future of the UK economy. I do feel there's an inertia in the UK. It just feels like we've lost our ability to make decisions and get it done. It started off with this whole idea, right, we're going to do market towns, we're going to create a sausage factory, we're going to have a formula, but it's very hard to be formulaic, if not impossible, in real estate and perhaps in business. Things change, things evolve. These things have to have an impact on real estate. But as I said to my team, don't fight it, embrace it. It's going to create new opportunities.
Piers, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Not at all.
Pleasure to be here.
Not at all. Well, look, I know you're a proponent of innovation, enterprise and fun, and I've done over 100 of these podcasts, but you stand out as someone very different to a lot of the others that I've interviewed, just because of the depth and breadth of the things you're involved with, and I'm really keen to unpack a little bit about those different parts, and also how and why and where they all fit together. But before we get on to Reef Origin and the businesses that you're involved with, can we throw it back, and can you tell me a little bit about how and why you got into real estate in the first part?
How and why, yeah, absolutely. So I got into real estate really because I was looking at the Uckus books, and I think Polly books, whatever they were then. And it was a case, actually, if I'm really honest, of what could I get onto and what did I like the most out of everything. And also I was at school in the Midlands, and there were quite a few families there who were in real estate. It seemed to be quite a good quality of life. And my logic was you'll always need real estate. So I made my applications. The only place I actually got onto was Liverpool Poly. Went to Liverpool Polytechnic, came out of Liverpool John Moores University, and had a great time there, great time in Liverpool. And from there, really developed an interest in real estate, and the financing was very, very jammy, and got a 2-1, 59.6, rounded up to 60%, which was really an injustice to lots of other people on the course. But anyway, and then from there, decided I wanted to come to London. My mum always reminds me, I wrote 80 or 90 letters, all rejections. It was the early 90s recession, which was, I think, it was a strong recession. You know, values went down, rents went down in lots of sectors, and my U in maths at A-level was holding me back rather well from getting any sorts of jobs. So anyway, I ended up doing a master's at City University in property investment. So I'd done the surveying degree and focused on property investment, which actually was a really good move. I learned spreadsheets, which for my age group is not that common, and also really honed what I'd missed out on probably during my A-level years from dossing around too much, and did very well actually in the masters. Learned lots, and then got a job. I was still struggling to get a job, if I'm honest. It was the market and this A-level result. It's a lesson to all you out there: work for your A-levels and do your maths. And basically ended up actually having a choice of two jobs. One was with DTZIM, or DTZ actually as it was, as an analyst, which would have really challenged me, I think. And then the second job was with a company called Mason & Partners, through a Liverpool contact, but their London office, as a retail agent, which I decided to do. It was less money, but I wanted to learn how to do deals. I wanted to get my RICS, and joined them in Grosvenor Street, and went on to be a retail agent when retail was a very growing market.
No family in real estate directly?
No, none. No family in real estate at all. So no sort of relationships really from that, in that regard at all, actually, no. So just got into it and sort of made my way. But I mean, actually at Mason & Partners was great. I mean, it was, I'm still good friends with Andrew and Chris Mason and their late father, Jeff. So although we were quite a small agency, we had some very big clients boxed above our weight, and particularly through Jeff's relationship in the north. So there was Albert Goubet and people like Eddie Healy of Meadowhall fame. So, and some big clients as well. So it was a real baptism of fire. No, one computer in the corner, which I had to do because I could do spreadsheets, and basically a day book and a phone. And a mobile a few years later, but anyway.
And just eat what you
exactly.
Eat what you kill.
Yeah, I mean, Mike Smith as well was there. listen. I learned loads off them. We'd go out canvassing shops, which I used when I started Reef. But it was really, it was. We were Iceland and Peacock stores. I was given those accounts eventually, which was great when Andrew moved up north. And then we had Virgin Active, where we developed, or as an agent rather, secured some very big mega gyms, 60,000 square feet. But yeah, it was very much you left to your own devices, which was hard but good, and definitely learned a lot from it.
Growing up, what kind of kid were you?
Difficult, annoying, wouldn't do as they were told. So I'm the middle of four. So so I've got an elder brother and then a younger brother and younger sister. Actually, my younger brother is our finance director, one of our partners at Reef Origin. So he was the clever one, went to King Edward's. I went to Solihull School, but I get to tell him what to do now, sort of.
So you were one of four, and now you've got 4 kids yourself.
I have got 4, yeah, absolutely. All growing up into this new interesting world. So, yeah.
So you were at Mason's.
Yeah.
How long were you there for?
I was there, I think it was 93 to 99, and then it was really good fun. I'll be honest, I think I'm a better developer investor than I'm an agent. I could do it, but I was always wanting to be on the client side, and having to keep my mouth shut, about what I think they should do. So I found that bit not frustrating. I learned loads, but I just wanted to have a go, and also I didn't want to just stay in retail. I knew that much. So yeah, I left there in 99, went traveling. The idea was to see the sunrise in New Zealand, but it was cloudy all day. Then came back with my now wife. We got engaged out there, and then I went to work for a developer called Quadrant Estates.
I know them
Chris
well.
Daniel.
Vanessa's been on the podcast.
Ah, okay, yeah. No, so she wasn't there when I was there, but I worked directly with Chris, and Tristram was there, and Duncan and others, and that was great. I'd sort of come from Jeff and the family were quite northwest, quite direct and quite punchy, which is fine. And then I went to work for the sort of polar opposite in the city with Chris is a real gentleman and the wider team, and learnt there. I learned the conditional contract. I learnt fundings because Jeff was much more, you buy it, you put your money down and get it bought. Whereas with those guys, it was more about, packaging up the deal, which is really, really, really invaluable experience for me. And I'd gone from sort of propco capital to institutional capital. And Chris is, and what, absolute master is a way around a conditional contract, so I learned loads. And then left there, I think it was after about 20 months, because I just couldn't really see a way through, and I got an opportunity to start Reef, and I just took the view to go for it, rightly or wrongly. So left there.
How old were you?
I just trying to work that out. So that would have been 2001. So I was 30.
So you're 30.
Just 30, yeah.
Just engaged.
Just engaged. No baby on the way at the time. Then that happened rather quickly. So started off in the spare bedroom.
The bit in terms of setting Reef up.
Yeah.
So how did you actually set the business up? So you left Quadrant after 20 months thinking, now's the chance. I'm 30, I'm engaged. I don't have a kid yet, but
now thinking, you big mouth, you've told everyone you want to have your own business and you've got to follow through. So obviously that was fairly, look, my logic was that, with no arrogance, but I could probably go back and get a job at, at JLL and others, and find a life in the agency. So I've got to listen. I love agency. I think I'm very loyal to agents still, and the role they play. But I just had this itch to do it. So yeah, I borrowed £50,000, which I paid back off my father-in-law, and started in the spare room. And yeah, it was a baptism of fire, because it's all well and good talking about it in the pub, but actually doing it. And of course, you find out who your friends are. You're not that important anymore. So you're kind of on your own. Which is fine. And I was used to that from Mason and Partners. We weren't part of one of the really big agencies, so that was all familiar territory. But yeah, it was chasing down various deals.
So 50 grand, what was the business plan? What was the idea? And what was the 50 grand for?
I don't think I had a plan. I think, do you know what? If I look back, it was reckless, stupid. I wouldn't say irresponsible. It was just more stupid, really. So there wasn't really a plan. It was crazy, actually. And the plan was to try and find a deal. I'd done a few deals at Quadrant across different sectors, retail and R&D parks. So I really went back to retail because that's what I knew. So the idea was to find some vacant retail where I could lease. There was these things then called 15-year leases. I think actually it was a 25-year lease to Barracuda was the first deal, which is a pub company. So it was just to find product that you could, refurbish or extend. I hadn't built enough ground up, if I'm really honest with you. But anyway, managed to, through an old mate of mine, still a good mate, James Peasnell, who was, I think, at Dalgleish and Company then, we a bit of canvassing, canvassing is when you write and try and find vacant properties. We found a large unit in an old sort of Generation 1 Woolworths or something in Dartford High Street, acquired it, actually bought it cold, I think, with planning, took a view on the licensing, back-to-back it, pre-let it to Barracuda, who were quite a reasonable sized pub company, and then sold it to a private investor. And then you have to go again. So, but
how much money did you make from the first deal, and how long did it take you to do that? First
I think deal? So. How much did we make? I make about just over 150. I think it's about £155,000, and get your money back. And I'd borrowed that money again to back it, so that was good because overheads were low. But of course, you can't spend it all; you've got to keep going. So then, from there, it wasn't like I had suddenly a load of transactions. I actually, during that process of getting Dartford, had thought, oh my gosh, this is not going too well. So I'd actually spent the summer of 2000. So I started the business in late 2001. I spent the summer of 2002 when my now eldest, who's I think he's 22, was sort of due, and I was like, oh my god, this is getting serious. I've got family coming as well now. And just stayed in the Northamptonshire, my outlaws lived, and just canvassed, as I'd learned really doing with Mike Smith many years ago from Mason Mars, just canvassed all the market towns, East Anglia, sort of North Essex and all across the Midlands, and then managed to build up a pipeline of sort of 6 or 7, some were like vacant shops to extend the rear, trying to lease to the likes of Iceland, or it actually wasn't old clients, but that sort of ilk. Basically, it was trying to create bigger boxes in high streets, because I'm guilty for partly ruining your high streets, sorry, but along with lots of other people. So in the real estate world, so it was really about providing space for the multiple retailers. I mean, then the only way you could shop was to walk down a high street and look in a shop and see what you wanted to buy, which seems a bit odd now. So we really, and I'd always had a good success in the sort of Suffolk, East Anglia and that area. So yeah, that was what we did.
So just built up a portfolio of...
Well, always traded. So just always, get it occupied, pre-let, and then either let them fit it out or sell it. Or we'd always buy it. I mean, we did actually do a subject to planning. I did a subject to planning, probably a very early convenience store for the Co-op in Norwich. That was on Pfeiffer's Lane, which is about 7,000 square feet. That one there, I got planning and they'd forward purchased it. Well, they purchased it off us as I developed it for them. But yeah, it was always trader. We couldn't afford to hold. Look, when I started, I had aspirations of having this big property empire and portfolio, which I wouldn't want now, to be honest, for various reasons. And also, I think, you have to trade. You have to keep recycling the capital to grow. Take money out, but also just to keep growing. So, and do bigger projects. And then we found the Irish banks, which was, another story to come.
So how big was your team and how did you...
Just myself to start with. And then we went up to about 4, well, there was 4 of us. And we built up to about 10 up to 2010. And then we always steadied around there. But yeah, it was always, it was a very small team and just trying to get enough product to basically keep going. So we never had you don't really want, we have 16 people now, but it's a different model. And even that terrifies me in terms of responsibility, because you take people on, you've got to look after them. And just because our market is cyclical, it's not smooth, never has been, never will be. In some ways it's smoother now because you have DM fees and the market's evolved, for some developers. But no, it was, so it was spare room. Then I went to Piccadilly. Then I went to Regent Street, south of here. Then an office just near Little Portland Street, and then over to Regent Street, and then the new entity, which we'll talk about later, or the reinvented entity. So
the evolution.
The evolution, exactly.
So it was mainly retail based, and you kind of found your niche.
Yeah, just because that's where I knew it, and that's where the demand was. And then so retail and leisure, but really pubs, restaurants. Didn't do much offices, if any, really. We so 2007, and we can come back to that. It's not particularly a similar story to everyone else who was. We managed to survive. I think that was basically it. And we were very in with the Irish banks. But in 2008, I've been working on a residential scheme in Newmarket, which we'd planned to sort of. I think it was about 40 apartments with restaurants below. Spent ages, loads of time on it. Got planning, and then the crash came. I was with Anglo Irish. And that, amongst other assets, were just caught up in it. We managed to then convert the consent at appeal, which was hard work, but also get a pre-let. Well, we had the choice, to be honest, of either Travelodge or Premier Inn. Chose Premier Inn. I managed to then put together another deal for them in Cambridge with unconditional money, with my FD, we put together a syndicate of buyers, and that got us on a really good run with Premier Inn. So then we hit the hotels, which was... again, a great run. I mean, in all seriousness, 30-year leases. They dropped interest rates. I think anyone who's honest, and I've heard some of your podcasts, who's sadly my age, never confused luck and skill. All the levers were going the wrong way. They put interest rates down, and off we went again. And we lost millions in value in 2008 and 9, 10. I had my buy, trying to feed the team, talk about the team, getting the team too big. I acquired two department store buildings off the Co-op in Gateshead, executed the business plan perfectly, but lost loads of value because we'd pushed the yield too hard. And so that hurt, because we wrote off quite a few million and had to make money out of the Premier Inn run. But but you only learn as again, I've heard again, you only learn from your failures. You really do. And
so the model was mainly just your own money, just recycling.
Well, it was growing our own money, exactly. But then
then just taking on debt.
Yeah, and then I borrowed some of my family, my wife's family, but they hadn't got that much money to certainly give to us. So we'd use that. We then put syndicates together. We'd put our money in, so we'd put money in to seed it, then we'd bring other capital in.
And was that institutional capital, or was that just...
No, it was high net worths. And just because, and then really the Premier Inns, we discovered the institutional market. I hadn't really played in it because I'd always been slightly put off by it, probably from the Mason and Partners days, but actually, it's been really good capital for us. And also you've got to build the right scale of assets. That's what so we then went up a gear to these bigger Premier Inns. And there, you're attracting the institutional money. Well, as was. So, we went on a terrific run, with the, I think we've been funded by, most of the, the big names out there now, in terms of the UK. So the Sal's, AXA, I'm pretty sure, M&G. So we discovered that market, and then that was good, and, built the team up, and was that still had some private capital deals going on as well, so a mix really. And did a very nice opportunity in Acton, 174 apartments, where we acquired an old shopping centre, and which gave a running return with a high net worth backed us, who's quite well known. And then from there we recycled that into institutional capital with a housing association taking the apartments. So but probably institutional market's great, but I quite like the higher up the curve capital. But you need to be in a market like we are now to participate in that, because it's this sort of market where you're going to make, I think, fortunes will be made and lost. Is my personal view.
So in terms of that model, is that going to the M&Gs, AXAs, L&Gs, or is it finding the product and then taking the product to the capital?
Finding the product. So
find the product and then you pitch it to the capital.
Absolutely. Well, for me anyway, that's the way I've always done it. I've always said to my team, you never lose a deal because you can't get the money. If the deal's right, you'll get the money. The pricing of the capital, but you might be too slow or, under too much pressure. But to absolutely, for me, it's put the product together and then you go to them. Now that's very simple with a Premier Inn or a Travelodge.
Because it's like an institutional
and they're pricing the lease quite rightly, and the quality of the town. Some of the stuff we're doing now, particularly around the sort of digital infrastructure and energy, is pretty innovative. It's a little bit out there, a little bit futuristic. It's not as futuristic as it appears because it's racing towards us. But then I think, for me personally, I'll probably get loads of people dislike me for saying this, but I think the market was pretty boring from sort of early 2000 to 2020, and it became very, it was a formula, and offices, sheds, retail. I'm not saying this, I think there was some really great entrepreneurs through the 90s, and I felt a bit of a void of those, and there's some coming back in. I think it's partly the cost of entering the market. If you're a young developer now wanting to start, I mean, just to do a planning application, I mean, you couldn't start at £50,000 now. So I'm not saying, but I think also this market we're in and where I think we're going, and you're seeing it already on some of your podcasts, is leading to a much more creative market. You've got some really cool, we're not in the office space, we don't want to be, but it's going operational. You've got some really talented individuals and teams who are really grabbing that opportunity. We have a hotel platform, so it's familiar with me operational, but I think that's the difference now. You've really got to innovate. You can't just rock up and say, 15-year lease to XYZ, and I'll come back and get the keys in 15 years' time. And I'm talking about the office sector now. So that creates opportunity in my view.
So started with retail, moved into to the hotel space. Did you get burned badly by the Irish banks?
No, we hadn't borrowed enough to go down, but we'd borrowed, that whole thing. If you owe the bank, £1,000, you worry, but if you owe them 100 million, they worry. We were more than £1,000, but I had personal guarantees, which I shouldn't have done. Lesson learnt. So basically, I personally guaranteed the whole company's future. Would they have enforced? Our assets were good enough to enforce. That was the big concern. So me and my FD, we spent a lot of time.
Your brother?
Yeah, my brother. The unsung. They are the unsung heroes, doing none of the glory, but dealing with all the shit that we've created. So and a lot of a good FD spends a lot of their time clearing up. Not just financial things, all sorts of things, tidying up behind. So we spent a lot of time. And of course, the relationships meant nothing then. I'd built up these wonderful relationships, which meant nothing. The banks were fair with us. But anyway, we paid back all the banks. We're the one that actually paid Irish Nationwide back. I'd bought a long lease interest in Bow Roman Road of an old Safeway supermarket, and we ended up getting planning for 200 apartments and a new Tesco's, which we still actually Tesco Metro. So we paid that. It's just so time consuming. That's where going into this sort of whatever we're in. When 2020 happened, I just thought this is not going to end well. It just doesn't. Everyone's buying offices still, and I'm just like, this doesn't feel totally right. So I was preparing for shutters down, not stop, but what you don't want to be doing in this market is worrying about your load of crap from the past, whilst you're small files are good deals when we had paper. Big files mean you've had problems. So really, this time round, I was determined to be streamlined, so we could just focus on dealing with the challenges, which are massive, but also have the headspace to try and innovate and create and do some cool projects.
And not have too much legacy challenges
legacies
dragging you back into.
Yeah, I mean, people like, I heard one of your Ballymore. I mean, that would have been really hard.
It's probably the James Locke.
Yeah, I listened to that one. That would. I mean, you learn loads, but I did think, but you wouldn't be the top man there who's actually looking down the barrel. But but then you learn again. You learn, and you also learn. I'm not doing this again. so I don't want to be here in this seat. So
it sounds like you started the business with a load of youthful optimism and naivety. When did you start getting to a stage where you kind of put a little bit more rigor and a little bit more kind of business plan and thought around the business?
I think probably when COVID came around, I had time to evaluate.
So for 20 years.
Well, no. Probably, yeah. Well, no, the thing is as well, you start. So I started off with this whole idea, right? We're going to do market towns. We're going to create a sausage factory. We're going to have a formula. And to some degree, we achieved that in areas like I didn't mention actually at the same time as the hotels, we did a great run with convenience food stores. They saved us. I mean, they're only small. Lots of little 4,000 to 6,000 square foot Sainsbury's, Tesco's, co-ops, and they were, and we did have a sort of formula. But it's the same with the Irish banks. I had this idea, build this great relationship. It'll last 40 years, it's very hard to be formulaic, if not impossible, in real estate and perhaps in business. And even now, you look at you go back to the sort of 80s, a business would last a long time. But someone told me, the average length of a retailer is 8 years or something. Obviously there are examples of great businesses like Amazon and Google, but I think we tried, we did try to have formulas, have rigor, but it's really hard because then, and also in this particularly, as I go back to, if you make your team too big, you can do deals for all the wrong reasons. Now, if you're an investment house with an income flow, that's different because you can sort of plan around the income flow. But if you're a trader, which we, to all extent, we are, that's what we do. We build and we sell. So you have to shore up enough cash for the bad times. So I think, I have to say, we tried to have rigor and discipline, but if and that's the other thing that kind of probably led me onto the platforms we have is and Premier Inn are a fantastic business, so are Travelodge, but if they don't want to do a particular location, you can't make them. So that's how probably we developed our hotel platform, A Place Apart, so we could actually deliver hotels with our own branding. We've got great partners in EQ operating wise, because actually I do think sometimes we do know best and we want to. So we are, that's probably an example of, but even then, if land prices are too high, you can't buy more land for hotels. You've got to sit out the market and wait. So that's the problem. And there's too many people, I think, in real estate, and that's challenging.
Tell me more about that point.
I think it's a very busy market. I think, the market's grown and got bigger, but we've had the asset classes of retail, offices and industrial certainly since the 80s. And, retail has been through many challenges. There is some, I've still got some good friends, are retail agents. It's getting to a better place, but it's gone through massive consolidation and reduction in reality, and certainly reduction in rents. So industrial, massive opportunity that we missed. We're not experts in it, so that has grown. But again, offices, I think, are going through maybe not a retail moment, but they are going through a challenge. And I think AI and ML is going to throw further headwinds to that, and macro, economic, issues that are going on. So I think, it's very hard to sort of just stick in those sectors. So we've definitely been looking at new sectors, and I believe, residential's already showing a number of new it's breaking up.
Micro niches within the wider.
And that's quite logical. And there's probably more to come, and there should be. And I think offices will do the same. We've obviously got core or core plus, whatever we call it, and that's great. But I think there's new asset classes to come through in the and what is real estate, infrastructure, all sorts of sectors that I think we haven't really reinvented the industry or grown it, or in 30 years, which is a great opportunity. And then it'll be less busy because you'll have people focusing on more of the niches.
So you'll have other people move out of the mainstream office, retail, industrial, and move into some of the niche or kind of
infrastructure. I'm big on infrastructure because I think it underpins the real estate market. And if you've not invested in your infrastructure, there's not much point in having a real estate market. So, and also because why do things have to remain the same? Things change, things evolve. We just talked to you about having a day book and a phone. That's what I had. That's how we communicated. My youngest daughter's traveling around Southeast Asia at the moment and can just WhatsApp us, send photos. When I went to India in the early 90s, I was gone for sort of 4 months until I came back. So these things have to have an impact on real estate. But as I said to my team, don't fight it, embrace it. It's going to create new opportunity. It's scary at times because, your market for offices isn't what you thought it would be. But then once the new world starts to evolve and make sense, then it actually will create new opportunity. And I just think you have to embrace it. You can't. There's obviously this civil war about the office going on. We've had it for retail. We've had it for Brexit. We've got it for ESG next. But it's that's my view, is try and embrace and see what's happening, and that thing about go where the puck's going, and try and work it out, which is hard work.
You kind of transitioned the business, and you've alluded to kind of moving from Reef Group to Reef Origin and changing from a kind of a developer model to being more of a platform. Can you just expand on that and why you decided to do it, and then what the business looks like today?
Yeah, I think in COVID, had a good run as Reef Estates. Actually, was how when I started it, me and my wife named it. I'm a wannabe surfer, and reef's the foundation of the ocean. So and the ecosystem of the reef actually is really key to everything we've ever done.
So that's that is really the origin and the
Absolutely.
reason.
Yeah, no, totally. It's all about a reef being an ecosystem, foundation of the ocean, and it's a cool word. And then we had Estates Group, and then wanted to basically really focus on platforms. That was during COVID, working out what's next. And what do I want to be? What do I want to be? What do I want to be involved with? And following the trend, I suppose, or perhaps, we're definitely not creating the trend, looking at successful things that have happened in the US. And really also to the point about new asset classes, I thought we've got to, we have, so in Reef, we have a really solid construction design planning team. We've had that since sort of 2006. Jason Russell, who's one of my partners, and is our head of construction. He's basically led a team there, and it's one of our USPs. And it's a really valuable USP because we can turn around planning quickly. We can build. We do use external architects. We learn off them, and we obviously we use construction experts, but we have someone in house. I mean, building is hard. Everyone thinks it's easy. Everyone goes off and thinks, "Oh, I'm going to build a house." I just think you're mad, and they always go over budget and they're always delayed. And they always take ages in planning. But so really, having that in there, I sort of looked into what do I want to do? But how am I going to make money? And I think for me, it was about being able. I looked at the team and thought we can build really complicated buildings. We've got some real talent there. And actually, to my point, I do think real estate's busy. Anyone can buy a shop and tart it up, or even buy an office building. And there is actually a lot of skill to repositioning an office building, but people will still go in there, and it's quite a crowded place. And certainly there's lots of people with those potential skills. So I thought I'm going to want to really focus on complicated buildings and different sectors and modular, which we'll probably come on to later. But I think, so really then it was all about, right, well, the platforms, what do we do? So hotels, we love hotels. We've got a really talented creative team. Eleanor Alexander, who's another one of my partners, who leads, amongst other things, and many things, the creative side. She also works closely with Jason on construction and is our digital and power and energy infrastructure expert. But we thought, well, we can build hotels, and we've got all those skills in-house. Then life science buildings.
So the idea is, almost ring fence these different platforms, so you can then go and raise capital directly for
and attract
capital just to the hotels rather than it being across all things.
Attract capital, makes sense to your audience, whether it's a planning department or it's it's a vendor or it's obviously a fund. So we have the Forge Knowledge, which is the life science platform with UBS, solely with UBS, and it was about building buildings. So I hate this work from home thing, but I am a massive proponent of work from anywhere, because you work where you're going to be most efficient and where you're going to do the most damage for your business. And so it was almost like, well, if we can build buildings that you can't do at home, think, why do you need to come in? Okay, you can have dogs in the office and, free lattes and cakes, but actually you might also need to be in a lab environment or a dry lab environment or have computing power. But you need to do certain things or come together because you've got this podcast facility, and there's a reason why, you want to use some equipment. So, and it's complicated. So I thought we can be a USP there. And we built with contractor partners Merit. We built this cell and gene therapy building with UBS funding it. And that was real testimony to proof that I was right. The team was right. Jason, Will, Road, another partner of mine, I was sort of behind them, but we did it together. So we picked up some real skills. We built this cell and gene therapy building in Stevenage in half the time of traditional, and learned so much know-how that we are replicating elsewhere. Then we have Digital Reef, the data center platform, massive investor in the data economy. It's not even started yet, in my view, the impact it's going to have. And then from there, we have a place apart, which I've talked about, the hotels, traditional real estate, which of course we do, but it's a busy marketplace. So when we see something we like, we do it. And then we have the Reef 5.0, which is energy, and energy, we'll probably come on to that in a minute, but really all about nuclear energy in Earth and space. And then we have a small venture capital arm as well.
So you have all these different platforms. You can access all the different parts of the real estate or real assets
and they can all,
that you want to...
And join the dots. They can all sit next to each other. So people go, oh, you got loads on, but actually you quite often can actually put them all next to each other because the waste heat from the data centers can be used for district heating to heat 17,000 homes, which then gives you, you're living in a place apart. So, or you can use the waste heat for greenhouses at scale. So then you've got Industry 5.0, or, you know, so it's about circular economy.
And so you've got kind of the Reef Origin kind of topco, and then you've got different platforms underneath that you can bring different LPs into to fund different parts of the products that they want to get access to.
Exactly.
And then you could exit those platforms at appropriate, or you could, you know, trade them out.
And we are, exactly. I mean, with the exception of the Forge knowledge, we are funding asset by asset within the others. But there we are. But there's lots of interest in funding. But we're just seeing, you know, where we go on that. Because
so you're kind of building it, you know, you've got the flexibility there, the balance sheet to seed it, and then the partners to bring it in.
We're stretched because everything takes longer, and there's planning risk is massive on some of these projects. But yeah, exactly that, and we've got an amazing, you know, again, you know, first time round it was me. This time round I've got, you know, Jason, Eleanor, obviously Ed, and Will as partners. So there's a lot of shared worrying that goes on, which is brilliant. It's so much easier. There's a lot more. There's youth. Talked about youth. So hopefully I can provide some of the mistakes I've made, but you do need a bit of stupidity in youth. Not that they're stupid, but that keeping going, because, you know, you're talking about with your business, you know, it's relentless sometimes, and you just got to get punched and get back up, and get punched and get back up, and get punched and get back up.
And is it a succession? Is a succession play for you as well?
In terms of
just having a really strong bench that are a peer group different to you.
Well, the problem is they like me going on the trips with them, so it's which I enjoy. So we just had a trip the week before last in Africa, you know, looking at some projects there. So it's you know, definitely, listen, they keep me young, they keep me on my toes, they take the mickey out of me a lot, which is healthy and good. And I think there's certainly there's succession that, you know, they will chase through situations where, sadly, my age will be like, oh, I've done this before, and they will get there, but you just get tired. And definitely succession. I'm all about, you know, the partner. You know, the partnership model that we've got. I want everyone to do well. I think, you know, real estate companies. Yes, you've got a brand, brilliant, but you're only as good as your pipeline and your working, you know, your work flow. And you really want people worrying about stuff at the weekend. We are all programmed the same way, which I wouldn't recommend. You know, we all work too hard, and if there's going to be someone working late, you know, at 9:30 at night, you know who it's going to be. It's one of the partners. But we're not moaning, because, you know, and anyone's welcome to come on in. If you want to be as stupid as we are, come and join the stupid gang and ruin your weekends. But no, we love it. We're addicted to it, is the truth. But yeah, there's definitely a strategic success, you know, well, yeah, succession for sure, because I'm not going to be around forever, and definitely a strategic team to have different skills. And that's a really big thing. We've got, you know, in there, we've got commercial, construction, finance, design, creative, power and digital infrastructure. And that's definitely really, really important, that you don't just all come from, I won't criticise a poly or university will get in trouble. You don't all come from Liverpool John Moores University and all wear the same clothes and look the same. You actually all, you know, have got a number of skills that you bring to it. And
do you all the partners helicopter over all the 5 different platforms?
Yeah.
Or do you have one partner assigned to each platform with the right skill set and specialism?
Will, for example, would lead the Forge knowledge, but he doesn't actually want a title. He wants to be commercial over everything. Yeah, everyone has to be over everything. Otherwise, you're not a team. You end up with, you know, locked filing cabinets and all that nonsense, and you know, desk drawers. You know, Eleanor particularly is really into the data. She's worked really closely with me on the data economy and energy. So, and the whole, there's a massive opportunity to achieve sustainability, but also make loads of money. So, but then Jason's also a bit of a, you know, I'll call myself a geek as well, but both quite geeky around the energy. So it's definitely, yeah, we want everyone over everything, and 2 heads are better than 1. People have ideas, especially when you're under pressure. You know, someone else will come in from a different angle and just say, have you thought about doing it this way? So yeah, and you know, there's no point in saying team unless you mean it. So yeah, 100%.
Property is a people business, hence the name People, Property, Place. Business has been tough the last couple of years. Get the people aspect wrong, business becomes impossible. Get the people aspect right, it's still hard, but it's manageable, much more enjoyable, and you're much more likely to hit your goals. So if you're looking to add top talent to your team in 2025 and you're open-minded to an alternative approach and you're keen to make business a little less hard, drop me a DM. I'd love to have a conversation with you to see how Rockborn could potentially help you with your human capital requirements. Right, let's get back to the podcast. Talk to me about the type of capital entering the real estate market. Is it infrastructure capital at a lower cost base, or what changes are you seeing in terms of the LPs looking to get a slice of the market?
I think it's playing out how I didn't publicly predict it because I thought I'd be wrong, but it's playing out how I thought it might. And a lot of capital is leaving traditional real estate, in my view. I'll probably get shouted down by someone who knows more than me, which is fair enough, and definitely coming across to infrastructure. I think there's still plenty of capital out there for real estate, but it wants very high returns. On what I think, the asset pricing is still quite difficult. Well, for me, with real estate, is what's your exit? So you polish this up, it's brilliant, it's immaculate, but who's going to buy off you? A platform might take it, or a REIT, but to answer your question, I think, the money's, look, someone like Blackstone are just amazing. They're doing real estate now, they're doing infrastructure, they're just a market maker. I think that the capital that is coming into, that's perhaps leaving or reducing its exposure to real estate will be like long dated capital. And I actually think it's far better suited to things like data, energy projects, if you want boring low returns that roughly linked to inflation. And I think you're seeing a reduction in institutional capital. Some of the funders that we've worked with, like LaSalle, massively reduced. But then you've also got, there's a huge wall of global annuity capital out there that wants to find a home, which I actually think, with all the disruption going on, when we start to do things like increase how much we spend on defence, Europe perhaps finally coming together, ironically through Trump, plenty of capital going into the US for data centres. So I think it's probably the same capital moving around, but you've got different LPs with different returns and different skills managing it. I would say definitely less capital into real estate. And, if you talk to most people in real estate, it's just a struggle to find what you want to buy. If you see what you want to buy, great, that would make a brilliant student scheme or four-star hotel. Then there's 10 of you and the price gets pushed and it gets hard to make it viable. And even then, which cities do you want to do student? There's so many crosswinds. So I think that answers your question. But I think the opportunity in infrastructure is so big that it doesn't mean the market gets smaller. We just have to reinvent where we play as property professionals.
Talk to me about your digital platform and data centres.
So data centres, I just think the data economy is fascinating in terms of it's going to achieve lots of good things and probably some bad. I think social media is obviously a bit of a curse, in my view, in terms of how it can, impact sort of everyday life. But I think the data economy in terms of, so you take life science, we're massive proponents of wet labs, dry labs. We've got great assets through UBS in Oxford, Cambridge, and a massive presence in Stevenage, and hopefully looking across Europe. And but actually, the one thing I perhaps missed was that the data economy is also going to even change lab demand. You'll have more dry labs. You will have less wet labs. I think you'll have less labs, but also there's not just life science. There's AI, there's ML, there's med tech, there's materials, climate tech, so there's lots of great opportunities, the space sector, of course. But I think, so for us, going into data centers, it's very difficult to build data centers, a real skill set. We have that with the team, and so that appealed to me. We also, if you look at the size of the data economy and how that converts into assets, it's a lot of money, albeit a lot are moving towards the US market now, since Trump got in. But I think, for us, you're going to end up having, so this is an amazing studio, right? But you wind forward 7-8 years, this will look out of date, even though it's amazing. And that will be all around data, latency, energy, and that's why you come in.
It'll be screens and you click it and you could change the set design.
Yeah, I might not be in the same room as you, who knows,
Well, yeah.
But no, you probably will. But exactly that. It will be, the experience will be just for both us and for the person watching it. So I think for data centers, a bit like offices, the first generation of data centers were, they just happened, and then you're building them up, and then so there's actually a bit of an ESG time bomb on some of them because they're not that efficient. They also, the AI and ML market, which has caught everyone by surprise how quickly it's moved, has different kit and requirements and locations to, say, public cloud. So you've got all these things playing off. I still don't totally understand it.
How about the power piece? You haven't even touched on that.
Power is massive. There's lots of efficiencies coming in, but absolutely it's all about energy, and it's all about clean energy. So the data centers have to report their carbon performance on their balance sheets, which is good. So you then are really looking at volumes of clean energy, and you need base load. And really base load historically would be fossil fuels, oil, gas, coal. Nuclear is the only other base load that exists. In a very sunny climate, you can get away with solar and battery, but I'd call that quasi base load. And then if you think about, so if you imagine that you've got a drone up in the air that's delivering your Amazon parcel, how much energy is it taking up to hold that drone up there, to have the landing station here, to have the data center somewhere else whirring around, and we've not even started yet? Then you imagine that at volume. So the energy requirements are massive. That's why we've got into energy. And also, I do believe in, I think climate change is here. I don't think we have to make the pie smaller. I don't think we have to have a rubbish time. I don't think we have to all start wearing, well, I've got sandals, but wearing sandals. But we do have to start looking at circular economy, and we have to go for nuclear at scale. And one thing I'm really passionate about, and I'm blame the old government as much as this one is, we have no energy strategy. We have no energy foundation in this country. We're relying on an aging fleet of nuclear power stations, and then we're not going to do it with solar and wind. It's just nonsense. It's just makey uppy. I don't understand how anyone thinks that we're going to make solar and wind cut it. If we go to nuclear at scale, we can reduce the cost of our energy, and then we can have an industrial strategy, and everything you do is related to the cost of energy. So food, water, sewerage, AI, ML, advanced manufacturing, automation, everything. So, and actually there's some really good nuclear micro reactor products out there, require no government money. They are modular and small, so we don't have the Hinkley cost overruns risks. They can be put in now, 28, 29. All they require is regulatory support, and then we could actually build a really good energy foundation for the UK, and then we can onshore Industry 5.0, but automation, robotics, advanced manufacturing, AI, data centers, film studio, everything at scale that we want to do. And we'd have energy security, which I'm also very strong on, because at the moment we rely on Norway and France to be nice to us, which, and it's not even they could be nasty, but what happens if Macron says, well, hold on, I want this AI/ML in my country, so I want to not sell my nuclear to you guys cheap. So we as a world need to do that in every country, and that's sort of that's come from, we started for data centers, but that's what we're really pushing hard on. And it's exciting then, because then we have a pie gets bigger, no one goes without.
So you're going to own the whole value chain, right?
We want to be involved in the whole value chain. I think the ownership should be and will be on some of the models we're working with public-private. I think that could be your social impact. We want to be absolutely operating every bit of the value chain, but we don't want to own it. Because I don't think that's right. I don't think it's viable. And actually, then we talk about the capital that wants to come and find a home there, and we can do things like we're looking to do, if we can get planning in East London around giving low-cost heat to hospitals, schools. The state of the country's finances for the councils is really, really worrying, and that's not Labour's fault. I'm not even sure it's we can blame the Conservatives. I think we just got to realise that we haven't invested in infrastructure for probably 30 years because we've all been partying. Well, you're a bit younger than me. I was partying, enjoying the freebies, but we've actually got to put back in. So, but then that will create the capital is there, so if we can do it in the right way, we can then really rebuild the infrastructure. And the really big thing for the microreactors, we'll stop talking, is there's no pylons. The pylon Brexit, or what you want to call it, that's coming to this country is going to be massive. Whereas actually, we are saying you have decentralized microgrids everywhere. So you put the energy where you need it. You put the the battery where you need it, so you can then actually, it would really help the government. You can pepper pot your energy where it's required and still use the existing grid. You can still upgrade it, but you're not relying on sort of bringing it all down through Scotland and having a bit of a massive heated debate. And I think there will be, and I know that you're getting what you get paid, £2,000 or something for having a pylon next to your house. That's not much of a compensation, especially when there's an alternative.
Yeah, notwithstanding the carcinogenic aspects of having that as well, right?
Absolutely, and we don't know. I mean, and people will say, well, nuclear is really dangerous. Well, actually, no one's the deaths from nuclear globally. I don't think it's one, but if you look at how many people coal kills every year in terms of breathing, you look at the issues in inner city around asthma from car fumes. I'm a little bit jury's out on electric cars. I'm more synthetic fuels, but we certainly need to look at the cost, environmental and health of all these things, and then can we find an alternative and at speed.
In terms of where geographically are you operating? Because you've mentioned the UK and you touched on a site visit in Africa. Can you just talk to me about where Reef Origin is playing from a place perspective?
We're a UK company. I am worried about the future of the UK economy. There's lots of good things. Our energy strategy being our really bad thing, but I do feel there's an inertia in the UK, and you can't get things done. And that's not a dig at the public sector; it's a dig at the private sector. It's a dig at education. It just feels like we've lost our ability to make decisions and get shit done. And people I talk to completely agree. So tactically, we're trying to get 60% plus of our turnover outside the UK, just selfishly to be defensive.
As a business?
As a business, yeah, 100%. We are still very, very active in the UK, and we're doing some really exciting stuff in Oxford, Cambridge, Stevenage, hopefully East London, and we've got 1 million square feet of planning for data centre in Didcot and other projects around the UK. So we're certainly not leaving, but are going back to so in 2020, you said, well, I was trying to work out, well, what can we do? How can we do it to sort of have a bit of an impact, perhaps, probably to make more money, but also actually to have an impact. And I sort of came to the conclusion that you want to be able to cut and paste. And what I was fed up with, showing my age, is you go and start a big residential project, and every time it's like you're doing it for the first time. The planning, the design, the facade, the going to tender, the getting the funding, it's a nightmare. So we're really focused on, particularly in the digital infrastructure and energy infrastructure space, projects where we've got partners who are modular, so that we can remove construction cost, construction risk. I think there's a massive problem in the construction industry now that's not going to go away. I know modular's failed and volumetric failed, and
there's a problem there as well, right?
Absolutely. And the problem there is, in my view, I think the Victorian house, right, is the most popular house, give or take, and it's endured. They all look the same within reason. People still want to buy them now. They're still standing. They're solid, and basically, they're still, in my view, in London and other cities, they're very pretty to look at. They've stood the test of time. So, and if you then sort of take that logic, I'm not saying we build lots of Victorian houses everywhere, but why are we going, every time we design a block of flats, we have to have a different facade, a different, look, and then you actually drive past the bulk of the stock, and a lot of it doesn't age that well, in my view. But more importantly, it's cost a fortune to build because you're building for the first time. If we could do a modular, real quality, maybe like Poundbury, where you could modular the actual design, but you could then build a factory that way. You could then knock them up's bad language, build them really quickly, make sure they last the test of time, and then I think you could make at scale work. And that could also apply to 8-story blocks of flats.
And there'd be more of an identity?
Well, you've got to be careful, because people say, well, you don't look like communist UK. So we've got to work out how we do it. But the Victorians, to me, is proof that it worked. And if we could then do that with housing, I think that would be it'd be a massive improvement what's there at the moment. Nothing's stacking up. I'm sort of talking to a lot of the housing associations via an agent friend of ours and house builders on a sort of bigger play we've made into government, and basically nothing stacks up. Nothing's going to get built. That's not Labour's fault. it's costs, it's inflation, it's lack of skills, and it's the cost of finance. Okay, interest rates are higher. But we need to find a solution, and I mean, it's not houses stack up, but we go and build so many houses, and even then there's still issues to get them to viability, with the Section 106. So we've got to find a solution. But I know I'm completely contrary. LNG are out, but that's because everyone tried to work and fit to the sort of planning and design of the market. And I think it needs to be unpacked and repacked, which I'm probably not going to do because
I was going to say there's another platform or
I don't know about that, but I still I do fundamentally believe that once we get abundant clean energy with base load, we can then start to readdress doing some sort of volumetric. And there is parts of modular volumetric going on, but it's not going to. I don't see what we're going to do. What will bring back immigration, and we're going to suddenly solve the skills shortage in construction. Construction is hard. I really sympathise for contractors. By the time you get to the contractor, the fees that all the consultants have taken on the way through, I mean, and then actually you've got a consultant who's taken no risk as a partner of a big QS firm, taking more money out than the contractor who's carrying all the risk, carrying the cladding liability, carrying the funding, all the risk. It's just crazy. So the model's broken, and it will need to be fixed, I think. But yeah. And we actually want to. So that's what housing was. When we was having my 2020. What I want to do next, I was like, I don't want to do housing because it's a busy space. We do resi, but I don't want that to be our core because it's bloody hard, to build on budget and make money out of it.
So 60% of your revenue outside of the UK, where specifically outside of the UK do you anticipate that being?
We are doing, it's pretty spread. So it's modular, so we can cut and paste. So we're doing looking at quite a lot in Africa.
So emerging markets?
Global South. So we quite like, we're looking at opportunities in Brazil, Africa. We are actually looking at some projects in the US. It's all where it's where we can take. So we only go where we can actually take a value add. Our value add is our team, their expertise, complicated buildings, complicated infrastructure. But we don't try and. I'm not going to open a big contractor division in Brazil. There's brilliant contractors there, but we will take in the tech, the innovation, the design, the modular solution, and just work with them in partnership and I've said to them, we'll take less of it. We'll take our bit of the value, you take yours. And I think, for the UK, I think you have to look that way as well to find the opportunity. And also you can't just take the benefits of Teams, Zoom, the data economy and not think, well, hold on, isn't it a bit naive that I'm just sat here waiting for it all to come to me in the UK? As I said to you, why aren't you looking at Dubai or New York? Why not? What are the rules? You know where talent is in the UK that might want to get a higher return or higher income in other parts of the world. So that's what we're doing, and I think it's happening. It's exciting. We'll always have a core in the UK, but I think you've also got to look at the way the world's changing, in the sense that there's some great cities in the UK. We talked about the Golden Triangle, Bristol, Leeds, Manchester, but there's also great cities everywhere around the world, and they all require data, they all require energy, and you've got a younger generation who I think are potentially a bit more agile, certainly in their early years, wanting to go to other places. And why Africa? Well, because it's a massive growing economy, and we can bring skills and infrastructure solutions they haven't got yet.
Makes a lot of sense, but it also flies in the face of convention, which is focus, niche down. Yeah. You're doing a lot of things.
Yeah, true.
Across a lot of different geographies, nuances, regulation. How can you do that and reconcile that and stay focused and also be competitive when it comes to raising capital for those projects?
No, 100%. So the hotels, really, we would only travel to UK and Europe, because I think you're right, and they're time intensive. Forge, the knowledge platform, we are really predominantly UK, but there is some real opportunity. We're working on a number of projects. So we really like co-locating industry, our platforms and education. So there is some opportunities there with some pretty good universities sort of moving east. But really the global stuff is really digital reef, a bit of forge and the energy. So only the modular. But you're right, and I accept that. And also that probably reflects that we'll do 1 or 2 hotels a year max, because there's only so much where we can add value, and we can certainly. Well, no, so far, and we keep sense testing it with the team, we're not stressed by it. You come back, you do a bit like, have we gone mad? Is this a really stupid idea? But actually, it's not. And I think, we were actually, a partner today suggested we go to the US with them, because that's where there's a lot going on in the digital infrastructure space. So we're just really going where the revenue is.
Follow the money,
I think so, yeah. And we're going with partners. We're not going out on our own, and we're definitely sense checking it all the way. And we stay here and make a good living, or we could stay here and make a living. But I think we're in a bit of a unique opportunity. I think in terms of this energy transition and data transition, particularly, we're not going to go to, I don't know, a country in the Middle East and say, hey, we can build residential better than you can, because we can't. But we are going to go to them and say, actually, we could bring our energy and data stack if you're interested. And that's the conversations we're having. And again, hopefully not speaking out of turn, but I was talking to Mark Reynolds, the CEO of Mace. Mace, major contractor, they've shifted a huge amount of their business and turnover to the Middle East, because that's where there's opportunity. They are still very active in the UK, so I'm not saying they're withdrawing. And we've got other contractor partners who will remain nameless who want to come with us as well, because so I suppose, look, I think the UK is a little bit ex-growth. I know that's a bit of that could be a sort of controversial, but the skills aren't, and we need to take those and export them and create revenues that we can bring back the way in terms of tax.
We haven't even spoken about space.
Space, yes, space. That's I
think that's the first. Space as in not space on a real estate floor plate. Space as in space.
Yeah. Or mining, or sustainable mining.
Or sustainable mining. Two areas that we haven't touched on before in this podcast. Why space? There's not enough real estate to chop.
Yeah. So we'll wants to open a residential agency up there, so I'm sort of just helping him achieve that. My partner, no, I think so. Basically, during the sort of deep dive of 21-22, I went to University of Leicester. They have an amazing sort of what's called Space Park, and it's a mixture of education, industry, all located next to each other, with labs, clean rooms. And I went there, and one of our contractor partners, Merit, said, look, you're quite good at unlocking stuff. Can you try and unlock phase 3, which was the next phase, which we haven't managed to do. But whilst there, I just was like, wow, space is interesting. And actually, I think the space sector and market is way bigger than life science. If we want to have lots of, conferences about a sort of knowledge sector. I mean, everything, loads of technology in your iPhone, assuming you have one, comes from space technology. Your glasses, microwaves, most things in your everyday life. And actually, so I sort of went up to Leicester again, really unlikely candidate, because obviously only the Golden Triangle is where clever people live, and went up there and was just blown away by what they're doing. Met a gentleman called Professor Richard Ambrosi, who was delivering phase 3 and was the executive director of Space Park. He's given me a sort of, I think it's a 3.5 year flash course in science, nuclear and energy, and basically sort of got working what they're doing. They're supporting through radioisotope power technology. They're already supporting missions to the Mars and the Moon. And then I've ended up through Reef Global investing in their Series A and spinning them out of University of Leicester
through your venture.
Yeah, exactly. And but on that, on that journey, learned so much. And we always joke, but I kind of brought him back down from space, and he's to Earth. He's taking me up to space. But we're actually a lot of the so on our tagline on our website, building sustainable Earth and space economies, which is everyone's like, well, whatever, that sounds a bit whatever. But actually, they're all linked. And if you have a sustainable Earth and space ecosystem, which really comes back to energy and circular economy and looking after the planet. So we basically there'll be some announcements coming out later this year, but it's very exciting who we're working with. And as a British company, and Rich is now our chief scientific officer, but really the team, I feel very privileged to be part of it. There's an amazing team of co-founders there who want to do great things, and they're supporting, these missions. But then we can also bring a lot of that technology downstream. A lot of the automotive robotics technology that you see and you're going to see comes downstream from space. Because if you can do something in space, whether it's, I know that you can boil an egg, but whether it's keep something cold, keep something warm, then doing it on Earth is 100 times easier. So then you start looking at, things like remote autonomous mining, our vertical farm partners, completely separate to Richard. Their technology comes from space. So if you're looking at natural resources and, protecting the planet, but still being able to party and have a great time, a lot of it will come from space tech. So that's sort of, hopefully makes some sort of sense.
So it's taking the application and applying that to kind of the real assets space to optimize and be more efficient in terms of the real estate that you're developing.
Yeah, it definitely want to bring it downstream in some of the industry 5.0. And then I suppose the perpetual atomics, which is the space business, you ask why, I'm a bit like, can I? So why can't it be us? And I think I've met Richard and we probably have that in common, that everyone tells you can't be you. It has to be, Lockheed Martin, it has to be Rolls-Royce, or it has to be a Helical, or it has to be British Land. But we're like, well, why? So, and that's probably why we're doing all of this stuff, is why. And it's not me, it's the team. All I do is tell the team anything they do is possible, and they do it. But yeah, and that's what Perpetual will be. Can we build a global space business from the UK? And there's applications. So these are small nuclear batteries that they'll go on landers, rovers, which a lot of them are unmanned. They'll go on. They could go on the space station, they'll give you thermal as well as electric, but you can also use these batteries for monitoring subsea cables. So you think about the amount of subsea cables around the world, the data economy, protecting them, defense applications. So, and it's the only technology outside of Russia and China that's as advanced as it is, which then the team have been doing it around, you're getting a science lesson there, around a product called Americium-241, which is a waste that we take out of the plutonium, which is the nasty stuff. So actually you're creating a circular economy, clean energy, and some amazing stuff for Earth and space. And if you've got energy, and this is my whole thing about, if we have energy, then we can do anything. If we have energy, then we can control the data centers because we can turn the energy off. And that's what we need to wise up to, I think, as a country, big time.
And that's why owning that value chain is important, or having control or
oversight
or input
the UK
in that.
to own that value chain for energy, actually, But I want to be part of it because then we can make some money. But yeah.
Has your definition of success changed?
Yes, probably. I mean, I was never totally driven by money anyway, but I don't know what success would mean now. I think success is
What does success mean when you set the business up? Reef 20 plus years ago?
Yeah, well, probably have a big real estate portfolio and, come in the office 3 days a week and, holiday, I do very well, so there's no complaints. And probably, very comfortable life. And, maybe your kids would follow you into it, which I don't want them to do now at all. And, probably quite, and build up a wealth, which we still I probably want to do. But I mean, money, I think money ruins most people. It ruins most situations. It's an absolute bloody curse. And so, but equally it allows you to do nice things as well and gives you comforts. And so I'm not trying to say everyone shouldn't be ambitious about money, but I think for me, we haven't even talked about Exchange, the business we've invested in, the tech platform where we're putting nations across Africa and the world, their carbon assets onto the platform. But I think for me, it's about, I love watching the team do well, want them to do really well. I love being part of a team. I love, the sort of what's success. Yeah, can we innovate? Can we sort of do something we're famous for? I don't want to be famous, but it'd be quite nice, to do some things that people think, well, who did that? I guess that, and certainly, I think this whole decarbonisation, the planet. Let's say it's not global warming, but let's just say it's humans' activities on the planet are screwing up. But all these people, that sort of say, oh, there's no climate, or some of these people, there's no snow on the ski slopes, lads. I mean, it's happening, but actually we can actually do some stuff to solve it and still have a great life. So I think that doesn't probably answer it that well, but I think it's being part of something and trying to encourage others that we can have good behaviour, but also make some money and have a laugh.
Talk to me about ESG. There's obviously a lot of headwinds off the back of Trump, drill baby drill, and a lot of companies changing their policies or targets or sunsetting them. What's your take?
Yeah, so my take on ESG. So I mean, I've just earlier you're a long lecture about what we're doing to the planet, but I have to say in the same breath, I was a non-believer in 2010 in climate change. I'm a bit embarrassed to say, and I was also really only switched onto it if I'm really honest with you, in 2020, just started thinking about it. And I think, and also it's easy to sit there and say on ESG, well, we should do everything this way, when you're sat with a certain level of wealth and comfort, which I do have. So for me, ESG has lost its direction. There's too many consultants getting involved.
And do you mean ESG together, or like just the environmental or the social or the governance aspect?
So I think all of them. Very careful what I say so I don't get in trouble. Environmental is the easy one. So I think in terms of environmental, ironically, this is typical Trump, right? So, the way he delivers stuff, the way he behaves, like the Zelensky issue is just so rubbish and crap. And yet what's he done? He's actually possibly pushed Europe closer together, something we couldn't achieve as Europe on our own. So well done. And again, I think, drill baby drill, and actually if you look under it, and we know this from our involvement in the data center economy, the US are very shrewdly going to nuclear at pace. No messing around like our country. And I'm sorry, but, honestly, it makes me so angry. And, so actually what he says on the one level, but actually if they go to nuclear at pace, they're going to have a far cleaner economy than us. Environmental, staying on the subject, solar doesn't work, lads. It doesn't work. And, solar basically, first of all, easy one, look at our sun. It does work on microgrids. It does work on houses and buildings. So I'm not saying it doesn't work, but it's not the only answer. And can we just at least have a realistic, carbon footprint of the manufacturing of it and what we're going to do with it in 25 years' time, where it's going to go? Because that no one's given me that answer. Again, wind, it's very expensive. It's quite costly. If you bury those blades, I'm told, for 1,000 years and dig them up, they'll still be there. Also, the realities of dealing with things like the concrete and cement in the water, if you're trying to put them offshore, it's hard. And we talked about pylons earlier. So, I'm not saying we don't do solar and wind, but they can't be the bedrock. And if we do nuclear at scale, then we have a base load to replace the fossil fuels. The only substance that actually displaces carbon is nuclear. And that's the thing. It's not about offsetting, it's about displacing. So on the environmental side, we've got a massive problem. And I think we have this through our tech platform exchange, and we're putting a digital monitor, report, verify on everything we do. The operation, the construction of our buildings, which by the way, green concrete, massive issue, and I'll come on to that. Well, green concrete's not a massive issue, concrete's a massive issue, and embodied carbon. So I think environmental wise, I think there's some really cool stuff we can do with nuclear. And again, on the whole wrapper of ESG, it should be about making more money. ESG should not be about loads of bureaucracy, loads of red tape, loads of consultants making your life rubbish. We can actually make more money with ESG, and that's where we went wrong. And so that's, for me, is massive. So around the environmental, we're looking to create new asset classes through the circular economy. So, for example, just trying to put our four-star hotel in Oxford, it's completely zero carbon operation. We have a social impact layer as well. A lot of social impact is just telling the stories of what you do, giving food away, local training, upskilling, outreach with schools. And then actually, I believe, you could then you could then start to actually show your ESG performance, tokenize that, and you could even get around to tokenizing real estate. Do the same with sort of things like the micro reactors we talked about. green concrete is good stuff. So if you take all the slag in the coal dumps up, around the country and around the world, you can convert that into green concrete with technology, which means you get rid of the slag heaps, and then you actually create green concrete. So you create a circular economy. So I think it's all about making money. It should all be about circular economy, and it should all be about trying to create asset classes, i.e., make money through doing that. So you enter a sort of recycling, but not recycling and wearing less clothes. Knock yourself out. Buy as much cheap clothing as you want, as long as it's been made properly, and then just repurpose it through gasifiers, through technology. Social impact. This is I massively believe in. We hosted an event yesterday, again in Oxford, our hotel, with Oxfordshire County Council and all of the councils. And it's a massively important issue. The state can't do everything anymore. So I'm a really big believer in the social, but it did get, I think it got too woke, or whatever the right word is to use. We've got to, it's about improving people's lives, but we've also got to help ourselves. And, I do think we're in a war and we need to start marching as a nation. So I think massively supportive of ESG, but let's try and make everything we do around making money. Even if we're trying to monetize the social impact, so at least you can look good and be good as a corporate. So I think I'm calling it the reset. I think it's for enterprise, and both public enterprise and private sector enterprise, to try and show how it can make you make more money on your balance sheet, in terms of your bottom line. But I think, and I don't think BlackRock messed up, and they've been really unfortunate, but we've got to try and monetize it where we can. Otherwise it's not going to happen. So, it's increased profitability through sustainability is what we're trying to champion. And if you look at countries like, there's lots of countries in the Middle East we're talking to out there, in Africa, they're much more on board with this. So I think the US may get left behind and then catch up and overtake as it does, if that makes sense.
What's your take on the opportunity set, kind of trying to bring it back to being a bit more real estate focused?
100%. So the opportunities, gosh, I think for me it's got to be real estate and infrastructure. I think it's around creating asset classes that I do think linking to, we touched on ESG, but linking to carbon, the price of carbon going up. So there's loads of opportunity around unlikely sectors. We talked about energy enough, biodiversity, carbon assets, and linking them in with your real estate. I think the real estate sectors will subdivide more and more. I think there's huge opportunity. So if we get energy sorted, onshoring, advanced manufacturing around the ports, logistics and advanced manufacturing will continue. Then if we, the government getting a really hard time about these green jobs, and I do kind of agree, but imagine if we start to have nuclear and then have synthetic aviation fuels, synthetic maritime fuels, there could be great opportunities around the airports, around the ports. And it's all about making money, right? So I'm not trying to, it's not, but putting solar and wind there won't do it. But so really around, for us, it's all about every country. And you asked about us traveling earlier. We don't want to own it, but every country should be focused on a sovereign energy, data, food, water, industry 5.0, and biodiversity and natural resources. And that probably is where I'd focus. Because we have to do that, and it's coming through. We're talking to countries in Eastern Europe about helping them out with decarbonising and giving them nuclear, all very real and happening. Because everyone's, if you're close to the Russian border, you start to take these things a little bit more seriously. So I think it's all around new asset classes that I firmly believe will come out of those sectors, and getting close to the education, but helping the education commercialise. But I think. I think that kind of answers it. And I'm sort of positive, but we need to stop the inertia of the country. We need to get shit done. We built the M1. I read an article in a couple of years or something. We with the Brunel. Where have these people gone? Where have these projects gone? Everything just gets caught in. We're going to build a new runway. Well, that'll be an exciting 20 years of reading about that. for it to maybe happen or not happen.
HS2.
I was going to not mention it, but exactly. so I think that's that, and I definitely do not blame Labour, but I do think the country needs to wake up a bit, on all those fronts to get moving.
Real estate can be a bit of a herd mentality as an industry and as a sector.
You're setting me up here, aren't you? But
I think I started at the top of this conversation saying something along the lines of you're a proponent of innovation, enterprise, and fun, and genuinely, really fascinated at an hour and a half ago or whatever it was when we started to see where this conversation would go. Who do you hang out with, or what books or podcasts or things do you read to kind of broaden your view and inform your opinion around where that puck is going and to try and align your business?
So, gosh, careful.
That's not a setup, is it?
Well, it depends if I talk about real estate people and say what I really think. I try to hang out with as many. I never say no to a meeting. I will meet as many different people as I can. I have friends in the agency world, but I tend to we'll tend to sort of. We definitely work with agents, but we're working in areas that aren't necessarily traditional. So we're hopefully being part of a new sector. So who would you hang out with? Anyone who's different. I've just come from the Minerals Products Association lunch, where it was all about awards around biodiversity, of how they use this is quarries in the UK. Really interesting. Loads of interesting people. Lots of people making money. I am driven by making money, so it's not like, but actually that you learn way more at something like that than just standing around the same sort of group of people who are, specialist agents and whatever. Again, we love, we work closely with a lot of the data center companies. So again, out of my comfort zone, we have a colleague in Dublin who's in the tech sector. So really, as wide, as different as possible group as we can, loads in education, trying to join the dots. Again, there's some really good people working in local government. We work really closely with a number of the councils, and they're just fantastic, and they're doing it with not a lot of resource in terms of money. There's also other people who need to get on with it a bit, but that's true of the private sector. So I think, my advice is, and I'd say that about all of my partners, is to we have an eclectic network as possible of different backgrounds. I'm not even talking about diversity. Different backgrounds professionally, working in different sectors, understanding what their issues are, because it quite often creates opportunity. So that's I think that answers that part of it. And again, I'm pretty secretive with the real estate people because they do have a habit of copying. You sort of see your ideas being regurgitated badly. So, and it is an imperfect market. That's why I got into it. So, you don't want to go and share what you're doing until you've done it. I never understand why people do a big launch about what they're going to do and they haven't done it yet. So we'd sort of rather launch after we've done it, in terms of products. And then I think, reading, I'm a real bore. So I read the FT vociferously. I always read the comments, actually. So I try and read, Telegraph just for the business, The Economist, obviously the People Property Place podcast. And I think, and then actually traveling. I've done a lot of traveling. Never traveled in terms of traveled loads, but never in terms of business. Travel a lot through the business now. Spent a lot of time in the US the last few years, both with life science and the space, and energy and data centers, and then again Europe. So I think traveling and understanding.
So it's that curiosity, but then just trying to piece it all together and spot the opportunity for where you can plug like the real asset or the real estate solution to the problem that you see coming.
Totally. Or I think curiosity. Yeah, I mean that's probably got me into half the trouble we're in and half the opportunities. And that thing I just said, like, can we do it? And again, even back in the 90s, I was exploring. Almost went to work in China. Was looking at cinemas in India that from UK companies. So I think actually there's some really great opportunities globally. I mean, I get your point about are you and it's quite valid. Are you spreading yourself too far? But then equally, I was talking to John Hollick at UBS. We're both aligned that the Middle East is really open for business. There's some really interesting stuff to do out there. Doesn't mean we're not going to invest in Europe or the UK or be active here, but there's no rule book. I mean, that's probably what you say to anyone. Don't be confined. Most people who will tell you can't do it is because they're scared or they've got the most to lose. Actually, you need to sort of push on that. And we are really liked, weirdly, in quite a few places around the world still, despite our football fans. So, let's take advantage of it. And we do have some skills. I do think look at the Savills, they've done great stuff, in terms of scaling globally. So it's no different to them.
It's interesting though. A lot of businesses are looking a little bit more. Countries are looking a little bit more inward, a bit more onshoring. Whereas you're kind of
we're helping them onshore. But I completely agree. Yeah, absolutely. Globalization is we're helping them onshore without a doubt. And to be honest with you, it's around energy and ESG and carbon, which creates opportunity. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, but we are. If you look at, we're working with small island developing states, all the nice islands where you want to go on holiday. They have exactly the same issues. They need to have sovereign energy, food, water. They're right at the forefront of climate change. So all we're doing, and data centers, is helping them, achieve some of that. We go into, look, you've got a water desalination, you don't need us, but would you like some more energy so you can do it? And actually you can make a load of money out of your carbon, which you can then reinvest in your economy. So it's all cut and paste. It's a formula. So it sounds very exotic, but it's literally a formula that we're doing. And as I say, we're not trying to own it. I say to them, we just come in, help you do it. Hopefully you help us and give us ideas, then we withdraw.
Share the economics and move on.
It's the opposite of the East India Company.
As we draw to a close, Piers, a question I ask everyone on the podcast is, if I gave you £500 million worth of capital, who are the people, what property, in which place would you look to deploy that capital?
I would, because although I've talked about, growing our turnover, overseas, I want to be proud. I'm trying to be British and be proud to be British and enthusiastic about the future of the country. So I would invest it in the nuclear sector. I would obviously invest it in our team, only because every time I invest money in other people, it tends to go fabulously wrong. So I'd rather have our team and control it. And I would invest it in, I would invest it in some facilities which would be transformational for the UK in terms of value create, and then really champion from there a UK nuclear renaissance and industry where we could control the micro reactor for the world, not control, export globally, which has a value of probably $1 trillion, and build up massive job creation in the north, and then give us energy resilience, so then all of the development community can build buildings again and build nice places and make lots of money. And actually, so I would just see the nuclear energy business, industry, which we could then export globally. We are really good at nuclear still, just because we have an aging skill set in that, and we need to get that down to the next generation.
How old are you?
53.
53. And you set the business up when you were 30, so 23 years ago.
Yeah.
Do you think when you're 30 years old, asking your father-in-law for 50 grand to set up a property business, whatever that looked like, you'd have achieved what you've achieved in the last 23 years?
Gosh, good question. I don't think I thought that far ahead, but probably not. I mean, we're at an interesting crossroads. You have to ask me again in about 3 to 5 years. So we do have a plan actually now. And we want to get 100 billion under management.
100 billion
of enterprise value. That's.
And what time frame?
We're at about 20 now. I think I gave them a couple of years and they're having a good go. So I think probably 3 years plus, because some of the
3 years plus to take from 20 bill enterprise value to over 100.
Enterprise value of the projects. When you're playing in the nuclear and sort of data center space, particularly, you can get these numbers ratchet up quite nicely, quite quickly. Look, I think I'm pleased with what we've achieved. There's a lot more to achieve, and I'd say, look, you can't do that great team, and it's credit to the team around me that we're able to do these things, and we're still trying. But yeah, definitely more to do.
20 bill of enterprise value against 13 heads, that's a decent ratio.
Yes, enterprise value, I hasten to add, absolutely. But they're big projects. And that's why, we talked about it actually. I get this thing called Technation every morning, and it tells you who's investing in what in the data center. And that the reality is, whether anyone likes it, is that is going to suck capital out of the real estate market, because it'll go into that market because there's only so much capital. There's a lot of capital, and you look at Blackstone's raise, how much they're actually putting into infrastructure as opposed to real estate, which we shouldn't be scared of because it's the same skills, totally transferable. It's
just real estate people need to be awakened to the opportunity outside of office, retail, industrial.
Yeah, and people like I work with Savills quite closely. They are, definitely. There's a definite. You can see it. Yeah.
Piers, I feel like I could chat to you for and on and on and on, but we kind of have to draw a line. I'll have to get you back for round 2, round 3, round 4, and round 5.
See if I did it or not.
Yeah, exactly. To discuss the journey further and chart your way to 100 bill of enterprise value. But thank you so much for sharing a little bit about your background, journey, and route from being a retail agent through to the present day. Incredibly inspiring, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, quick one from me. If you enjoyed this conversation, do me a favour and share it with a friend or colleague that you think would get value from this conversation. It would mean the world and help grow the People Property Place podcast. Thank you so much.